Well, what do we have here from Zero Hedge? Pundits stunned after Trump hangs up on Australia's Prime Minister, slamming, quote unquote, a dumb deal. That sounds exactly like what Trump would say in a tweet or live on TV. What a stupid deal. What a dumb deal. Who would do this? What is this? Right, you can see it now, Trump, on the phone. What is this? Are you kidding? This is a dumb deal. I died to do this for America. I thought this was America. And this is America? I thought it was America. So I thought, would he actually hang up? You know, again, another president of a country, prime minister, same thing. Would he actually hang up? I don't think he even hung up with the Mexican. I mean, at least they chatted. Didn't hang up on each other. I mean, my goodness. First, the AP reported that according to a transcript of a phone call between the presidents of the U.S. and Mexico, Trump threatening to send U.S. troops to Mexico if it was unable to stop the bad hombres down there, or pronounced hombre. Then in a separate report from the Washington Post, Trump labeled a refugee swap deal with Australia dumb on Thursday after a Washington Post reporter of an acrimonious telephone call with Australia's Prime Minister replete with alleged yelling, in which Trump hung up after just 25 minutes, that has threatened a rift in ties between the two ally nations. Well, that's because you're all going to find out along with me, which I already know this. I'm sure probably most of you do too. These so-called leaders of other countries, they haven't had their Trump moment, as in the Trump person taking over, winning an election, dumping the liberal leftist agenda on its head. But you can see Theresa May, over in the UK. We have Le Pen, France. These are the Trump movement people. So that's two more, aside from the original, which is Trump. But he is still dealing with the likes of, Kevin Trudeau of, Canada and or another liberal leftist moron. And then again, the likes of people like Angela Merkel of Germany and now the Australian president. Keeping in mind, isn't it illegal to own guns in Australia? Liberal agenda. Been doing well over there, haven't they? So it's no surprise that he said, listen, you moron, this is a dumb deal. I'm not doing it. I'm not part of the club, you idiot. Have you not noticed that? That's what he's essentially saying. The Post reported that Trump described the resettlement plan as the worst deal ever and accused Australia of trying to export the next Boston bombers. At one point, Trump reportedly informed Mr. Turnbull that he had spoken with 4 other world leaders that day, including Russian President Vladimir Putin, and that this was the worst call by far. The Post also said Trump had boasted to Turnbull about the size of his election victory. Well, good for you, Trump. Let them know. Let those liberals know how we roll around here. Breaking. Sky News sources say Trump was yelling during his phone conversation with Prime Minister Turnbull and hung up after 25 minutes. Good. Do it again. Oh, I think we got disconnected. Mr. Turnbull, I thought you hung up on me. Yeah, no, actually I did. I want to make sure you heard it. Hang up again. 2 times. It said the call had been scheduled to last an hour, but Trump cut it short after 25 minutes when Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull tried to turn two subjects such as Syria. Turnbull told reporters that the call with Trump at the weekend had been frank and candid, but refused to give further details. Let me, if I may, I think I'm kind of good at this. Let me give you a scenario with exactly what that meant. I got my ass handed to me. This guy's definitely not part of the club. And I was shocked at how the conversation went and then got hung up on, and I'm extremely embarrassed. So I'd rather not talk about it. That's Jason M4's interpretation of how that went. Pretty certain I nailed it. Quote, I do stand up for Australia. My job is to defend Australian interests, the former Goldman Sachs employee said in Melbourne. Oh, Goldman Sachs employee, now president of... Whoa. Australia, sorry guys, you need to get rid of that problem ASAP. He refused to confirm the Post report that Trump, who had earlier spoken to world leaders including Mr. Putin and Mexican President Mr. Nieto, had angrily told him that the call was the worst so far. Again, I want to admit that that's how the call went. That's how that's going. Political analysts were dumbfounded and said such acrimony was unprecedented, surpassing even the difficult relations between former U.S. President Richard Nixon and then Australian Prime Minister Gough Whitlam, who pulled Australian troops out of the Vietnam War. Quote, even that was always done in the language of foreign policy necessities, said Harry Phillips, a political analyst of 40 years with experience at Edith Cowan and Curtin Universities in Perth. As reports of the conversation hit headlines on both sides of the world, Trump tweeted shortly before midnight in Washington, quote, Trump, as he said, I'm going to tweet everything. I'm not giving it to the media. They're not going to report on what I said. I am going to give it to you myself through Twitter. Tweet it away, baby. So naturally, shortly before midnight, via a tweet, do you believe it? The Obama administration agreed to take thousands of illegal immigrants from Australia. Why? I will study this dumb deal. I'll be honest with you. I kind of felt like I wanted to go tweet to Donald. Donald, don't waste too much time studying this dumb deal. You might lose a few brain cells in the process because it's such a stupid deal. There's nothing to study. This is a deal between the club members using their minions to carry this crap out. The deal in question is a controversial agreement that Australia agreed with former President Barack Obama late last year for the United States to resettle up to 1,250 asylum seekers held in offshore processing camps. Whenever I heard the word camp, I usually, oh, your kids going to summer camp? Oh, yeah, okay, good. When I hear the government talk about camp, it's not normally the kind of camp you want to go to. Prison camp, resettlement camp, FEMA camp, What kind of camps are these people being held in Australia is what I want to know. But nonetheless, last year, United States to resettle up to 1,250 asylum seekers held offshore processing camps. So let's think about that one. What is an offshore processing camp as opposed to an onshore? Well, it's simple. Onshore would be on the mainland. Offshore would be on a little island or something right offshore. Kind of like Guantanamo Bay, kind of a deal, right? Essentially. Again, these are just asylum. We need help. They're refugees. We're seeking asylum. You're holding them offshore on an island. This sounds like these guys may be the terrorist of all terrorists. We got to keep a look at these guys while we got them stored here until we can dump them on America. I think Trump might be right. Anyways, they're being held in offshore processing camps on Pacific Islands in Papua New Guinea and Nauru. In return, Australia would resettle refugees from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. El Salvador, South American people or Islamic people in war-torn countries who really don't like us. It's a close one. I can't give you my answer, guys. I'm sorry about that. That's a tough one for me. I don't know which one I'd rather have. The swap deal is at odds with Trump's executive order last week that suspended the U.S. refugee program and restricted entry into the U.S. for travelers from 7 Muslim-majority countries, including Iran, Iraq, and Syria. Many of those being held in Australian detention center? What do you mean detention centers? Because they're asylum seekers. Why are you starting to see a little pattern here of who these people might be? Many of those being held in the Australian detention centers will have drawn harsh criticism from the United Nations, and rights groups have fled violence in countries such as Afghanistan, Iraq, and Iran. White House spokesman Sean Spicer and the U.S. Embassy in Australia have both said Trump would honor the deal. In several media appearances after Trump's tweet, Turnbull reiterated that he believed the deal stood. Quote, he is saying that this is not a deal he would have made, but the question is, will he honor the commitment? He has already given it, Turnbull said. I make Australia's case frankly, powerfully, forthrightly, and hopefully persuasively when I deal with other leaders. According to Reuters, the apparent breakdown between Washington and Canberra that has developed over the resettlement deal could have serious repercussions. Australia and the U.S. are among the 5 nations that make up the Five Eyes group, the world's leading intelligence sharing network. The United States also plans to send extra military aircraft to Australia's tropical north this year as part of a U.S. Marines deployment that will bolster its military presence close to the disputed South China Sea. Australia is one of the 10 U.S. allies purchasing Lockheed Martin's F-35 jet program. The Post quoted unidentified senior U.S. officials briefed on the conversation between Trump and Turnbull. It also quoted the official readout from the call, which emphasized the enduring strength and closeness of the U.S.-Australia relationship that is critical for peace, stability, and prosperity in the Asia-Pacific region and globally. So maybe Mr. Turnbull is going to tell Trump, we know you guys are all up on China's jock, and you kind of need us for your crew, your military. And we're only talking 1,250 of these people. You like to do deals? So do we. We don't want to have to kick you off our country. You're going to take the 1,250, and we're going to swap. We'll take these Spanish-speaking ones. You take these terror-speaking, excuse me, Middle Eastern-speaking people. Even though they're in detention centers, they're just being used to house these people. Not detained, not in a prison because they're bad. We just felt like that was the best place to put them. Something stinks, if I don't mind saying so. Take care.